What happens when Hollywood royalty sits down for what should be a simple late-night interview, only to discover the host has a completely different agenda? It only took 46 seconds of disrespectful commentary for one of cinema's biggest legends to reach his breaking point and storm off set, leaving Jimmy Kimmel speechless and the audience stunned. The Tonight Show studio buzzed with its usual energy as Sylvester Stallone walked onto the stage. The crowd erupted in cheers for the man who brought Rocky Balboa and John Rambo to life. Stallone waved, that familiar crooked smile spreading across his weathered face as he settled into the guest chair across from Jimmy Kimmel. "Sylvester Stallone, everybody," Kimmel announced to another round of applause. "Thanks for being here, Sly." "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Great to be here." The interview started normally enough. Kimmel asked about Stallone's latest project, a new action thriller that had the 67-year-old actor doing his own stunts again. Stallone spoke passionately about the film, his eyes lighting up as he described the intense training regimen he put himself through. "You know, at my age, people think I should be slowing down," Stallone said, leaning forward in his chair. "But I feel like I have more stories to tell, more characters to explore." "That's admirable," Kimmel replied, but there was something in his tone that felt off. "Though I have to ask, don't you think there comes a point where, hanging up the gloves might be the smart move?" Stallone's smile faltered slightly. "What do you mean by that?" "Well, I mean, you're not exactly a spring chicken anymore. Some might say watching a guy in his late 60s trying to be an action hero is a little, how do I put this nicely, sad." The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd, but most people seemed unsure how to react. Stallone's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "I wouldn't call it sad, Jimmy. I'd call it passionate. I love what I do." Sure. Kimmel waved his hand dismissively. "But come on, Sly. Rocky was what, almost 50 years ago? Don't you think audiences are tired of the same old tough guy routine? I mean, how many times can you play the underdog?" The camera caught Stallone's face hardening. His hands, which had been relaxed on his lap, now gripped the arms of his chair. "Rocky wasn't just a character for me, Jimmy. It was personal. It represented every person who's ever been counted out, every dreamer who's been told they're not good enough." Right. Very inspiring," Kimmel said with a patronizing nod. "But let's be honest here. You've made, 6 Rocky movies? 5 Rambo films? At some point, doesn't it just become about the paycheck?" The studio audience had gone completely silent now. You could feel the tension crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. Stallone sat back in his chair, studying Kimmel with the intensity of a predator sizing up its prey. "Is that really what you think of my work?" "Look, I'm not trying to be mean," Kimmel continued, seemingly oblivious to the dangerous territory he was entering. "I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking. Maybe it's time to pass the torch to younger guys who can actually handle the physical demands." "Younger guys like who?" "I don't know. Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, any of the Crises really. Guys who don't need a stunt double to tie their shoes." That last comment landed like a slap across the face. Stallone's nostrils flared, and his voice dropped to a low, controlled rumble. "I think you're confused about something, Jimmy. I do my own stunts. I've broken bones, torn muscles, and bled for every single action sequence you've seen me in. When I was filming Rocky, I took real hits. When I made First Blood, I performed my own dangerous stunts. I earned every scar on my body." Okay. Don't get so worked up," Kimmel said with a dismissive laugh. "I touched a nerve there, huh? Look, all I'm saying is that maybe it's time to embrace reality. You're not the young stallion you used to be." The wordplay on his name was clearly intentional, and it hit its mark. Stallone's eyes flashed with anger, but he took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his professionalism. "You know what, Jimmy? I came here tonight to talk about my new film, to share some stories with your audience, maybe have a few laughs. I didn't come here to be insulted by someone who's never put their body on the line for their art." "Insulted?" Kimmel feigned surprise. "I'm just having a conversation. This is how talk shows work. We joke around, we have fun. There's a difference between joking around and being disrespectful. You're crossing lines here." "Lines? Come on, Sly. You're in Hollywood. If you can't take a little ribbing, maybe you are getting too old for this business." The audience gasped audibly at that comment. Even some of Kimmel's regular supporters in the crowd seemed shocked by the host's relentless attacks on his guest. Stallone sat perfectly still for a moment, his breathing controlled, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "Too old?" he repeated slowly. "Let me tell you something about age. Jimmy, age brings wisdom. It brings perspective. And right now, my perspective is telling me that you're way out of line. Look, if you can't handle a little honest criticism, honest criticism? Stallone interrupted, his voice rising for the first time. You call this honest? You're not a film critic, Jimmy. You're a talk show host whose biggest accomplishment is making fun of people for a living. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Kimmel's face flushed red, his cocky demeanor cracking for the first time since the interview began. The audience held its collective breath, sensing they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years to come. Excuse me, Kimmel said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Making fun of people? I entertain millions of viewers every single night. I've hosted award shows. I've interviewed presidents. I think I've accomplished a little more than you're giving me credit for. Stallone leaned forward, his presence somehow filling the entire studio despite sitting in a single chair. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of decades in Hollywood. Every word measured and deliberate. You want to talk about accomplishments, Jimmy? Let's talk about accomplishments. I wrote Rocky when I was a struggling actor living in a one-bedroom apartment. I had $50 in my bank account and a pregnant wife. Studios wanted to buy my script, but they didn't want me to star in it. You know what I did? I'm sure you're going to tell me, Kimmel replied sarcastically. I turned down offers that would have made me rich because I believed in myself. I believed in that character. I slept in bus stations. I sold my dog because I couldn't afford to feed him, but I never gave up on my dream. The camera captured the raw emotion in Stallone's voice, the pain of those memories still fresh after all these years. Several audience members were visibly moved, some wiping away tears. That's a very touching story, Kimmel said, his tone dripping with condescension. But what have you done lately? I mean, besides recycling the same characters over and over again? What have I done lately? Stallone's voice rose again. I've inspired millions of people around the world. I've shown them that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. What matters is that you get back up. Oh, please. Kimmel rolled his eyes dramatically. Spare me the motivational speech. You're an actor, not a life coach. You're right. I'm an actor. And being an actor means putting yourself out there, being vulnerable, taking risks. It means caring about the work, not just the applause. Kimmel's jaw clenched at the implied criticism. Are you suggesting I don't care about my work? I'm not suggesting anything, Jimmy. I'm telling you straight up, a real entertainer lifts people up. They don't tear them down just to get a cheap laugh. Cheap laugh? Kimmel's voice cracked slightly. My show has won multiple Emmy nominations. We have some of the highest ratings in late-night television. Ratings don't measure character, Jimmy. And right now, you're showing everyone in this studio and everyone watching at home exactly what kind of character you have. The audience murmured their agreement, many nodding their heads. Kimmel glanced toward them nervously, perhaps realizing for the first time that he was losing the room. Look, Sly, I think you're taking this way too seriously. This is just how these interviews go. We joke around, we push buttons. It's all part of the show. No, Jimmy, this isn't part of any show I want to be part of. You invited me here as your guest, and you're treating me like I'm some washed-up has-been who should be grateful for your attention. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You questioned my relevance. You mocked my age. You suggested I'm just in it for the money. What exactly did you expect my reaction to be? Kimmel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly struggling to regain control of the situation. I expected you to have a sense of humor about it. Most celebrities can laugh at themselves. There's a difference between laughing at yourself and letting someone else use you as a punching bag for their entertainment. Punching bag? Come on, you're being way too sensitive. Sensitive? Stallone stood up abruptly, towering over the desk between them. The sudden movement sent a shockwave through the studio. Let me tell you about sensitivity, Jimmy. I've been in this business for over 40 years. I've been criticized by the best of them, professional critics, industry insiders, people who actually know what they're talking about. But you know what they all had in common? Kimmel swallowed hard, clearly intimidated by Stallone's imposing presence. What? Respect. Even when they disagreed with my choices, even when they didn't like my movies, they treated me with basic human respect. Something you seem to know nothing about. I think you're overreacting here, Sly. Why don't you sit back down and we can? No, Jimmy, I'm not sitting back down. I'm not going to sit here and smile while you insult everything I've worked for my entire life. The camera operators scrambled to adjust their angles, trying to capture every moment of this unprecedented confrontation. The studio audience sat transfixed, many of them pulling out their phones to record what was happening. Sly, please. Kimmel tried again, his earlier cockiness completely evaporated. Let's just finish the interview. We can talk about your new movie. You had your chance to talk about my new movie, Jimmy. Instead, you chose to make this personal. You chose to attack me, my age, my career, my integrity. Well, congratulations. You got your reaction. Stallone began walking toward the edge of the stage, his powerful stride carrying him away from Kimmel's desk. The host scrambled to his feet, clearly panicking as he realized his guest was actually leaving. Wait, Sly. Come on, don't do this. We're live. You can't just walk off. Stallone stopped and turned back to face him one last time. The look in his eyes was pure fire, decades of fighting spirit condensed into a single, scorching glare. Watch me. The two words echoed through the studio like a thunderclap. Stallone's voice carried the finality of a judge delivering a verdict. Every person in that room knew they were witnessing television history in the making. Sly, please, Kimmel called out desperately, his voice cracking with panic. Don't leave like this. Think about your movie. Think about your fans. Stallone paused at the edge of the stage, his back still turned to the host. When he spoke, his voice was calm but deadly serious. You want to talk about my fans, Jimmy? My fans are the people who understand what it means to fight for something. They're the people who get knocked down and find a way to get back up. They're not the kind of people who kick someone when they're trying to share their story. I wasn't kicking you. I was just trying to have some fun. Fun? Stallone whirled around, his eyes blazing. You think humiliating your guests is fun? You think making people feel small makes you look big? The audience began to applaud, a slow clap that built into thunderous approval for Stallone's words. Kimmel looked around desperately, realizing that even his own studio audience had turned against him. Stop clapping, Kimmel snapped at his audience, his mask of professionalism finally slipping completely. This is my show. I'm trying to conduct an interview here. The applause only grew louder. Several people stood up, giving Stallone a standing ovation right there in the middle of what was supposed to be Kimmel's interview. Your show? Stallone walked back toward the desk, his presence commanding every eye in the room. Let me tell you something about shows, Jimmy. A real show is about bringing people together, making them feel something, giving them hope. What you're doing here isn't a show, it's a circus, and you're the clown. How dare you, Kimmel shouted, his face now bright red with rage and embarrassment. I've been doing this for 15 years. I know how to run an interview. 15 years of what? 15 years of tearing people down? 15 years of using your platform to make yourself feel important by making others feel small? That's not what I do. Then what do you call what happened here tonight? What do you call questioning my relevance, mocking my age, suggesting I'm just in it for money? What do you call that, Jimmy? Kimmel opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time since the interview began, he was completely speechless. The silence stretched on, broken only by the continued applause from the audience. I'll tell you what it is, Stallone continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. It's the behavior of someone who's forgotten what this business is really about. It's not about the host, Jimmy. It's not about your ratings or your ego. It's about connecting with people, telling stories that matter, treating everyone with dignity and respect. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, Kimmel finally managed to stammer. I have to keep the show interesting. I have to generate buzz. I have to. You have to what? Destroy people's reputations to get attention? Is that really the legacy you want to leave behind? The camera captured Kimmel's face as the weight of Stallone's words hit him. For a moment, he looked less like a confident talk show host and more like a scared child who had been caught doing something wrong. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he said quietly, but it did go this far, Jimmy. And everyone in this room, everyone watching at home, they all saw what happened here. They saw how you treated someone who came here in good faith, ready to share their work and their stories. Stallone walked closer to Kimmel's desk, close enough that the cameras could capture both of them in the same shot. The contrast was striking. Stallone stood tall and dignified despite everything that had happened, while Kimmel seemed to shrink into his chair. You know what the real tragedy is here, Jimmy? You had a chance tonight to do something special. You had one of the most inspiring success stories in Hollywood sitting right across from you. Instead of celebrating that, instead of letting your audience hear about perseverance and dedication and never giving up on your dreams, you chose to tear it all down. Sly, I'm sorry. I really am. Can we just start over? Can we forget this happened and talk about your movie? Start over? Stallone shook his head slowly. Some things you can't just start over, Jimmy. Some bridges, once you burn them, they stay burned. He began walking toward the exit again, but this time Kimmel didn't try to stop him. The host sat frozen in his chair, watching helplessly as his guest prepared to leave. "Ladies and gentlemen," Stallone said, addressing the audience directly, "thank you for your kindness tonight. Thank you for reminding me that there are still people out there who understand what respect looks like." The standing ovation was immediate and thunderous. People cheered, whistled, and applauded as if they were watching the climax of one of Stallone's movies. But this wasn't fiction, this was real, and it was powerful, and it was unforgettable. "Sly, wait!" Kimmel called out one final time, jumping up from his chair. "You're making a huge mistake. Walking off my show will hurt your career. People will think you can't handle criticism." Stallone stopped one more time, turned around, and looked directly into the camera. "To anyone watching this at home, let me tell you something. There's a difference between criticism and cruelty. There's a difference between honest feedback and public humiliation. And there's a difference between being professional and being a bully." He looked back at Kimmel one last time. "I've been knocked down more times than I can count, Jimmy. In the ring, on movie sets, in boardrooms, in life. But I always got back up because I never forgot who I was or what I stood for. Tonight, you forgot both of those things." With that, Sylvester Stallone walked off the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live, leaving behind a stunned host, a cheering audience, and a moment that would be replayed and discussed for years to come. The cameras kept rolling as Kimmel stood there alone, the weight of what had just happened settling over him like a heavy blanket. The audience continued to applaud long after Stallone disappeared through the exit, their message crystal clear. Sometimes, walking away is the most powerful thing you can do.